This clip shows you how to add and subtract fractions. Let's look at the first example here. 3/8 plus 1/8. Well, in this case, the two fractions that we're asked to add have got the same denominator. And adding fractions is easy if you've got the same denominator. You just add the numerators. So the denominator of the answer is going to be 8. We add the numerators, 3 plus 1, and so we get the answer, 4/8. Now, when you get an answer that's a fraction, you should always make sure that you express it in lowest terms. And in this case, we can see that this fraction isn't in lowest terms because both the numerator and the denominator are divisible by 4. So let's cancel that 4. Well, 4 goes into 4 once, and it goes into 8 twice. So the answer is 1/2. Let's look at the next example. We're asked to add two fractions again, but in this case we can see that the denominators are not the same. So let's begin by writing down the question. 4/9 plus 5/6. Before we can add the fractions, we're going to have to express them with the same denominator. So we need to write this fraction here as an equivalent fraction, and we need to write this fraction here as an equivalent fraction, such that the two fractions have the same denominator. So, to write this fraction as an equivalent fraction, we've got to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. And the same for this fraction over here. So, the first thing that we need to do is think about what number we could have for our new denominator. And we need to find a number that's exactly divisible by both 9 and 6. Well, a little bit of thought should show you that a good number to use is 18, because 18 is divisible by 9 and also divisible by 6. So we're going to write both our fractions with denominator 18. So we need to multiply top and bottom of this fraction by the same number so that we end up with 18 on the bottom. Well, you need to multiply 9 by 2 to get 18, and so you need to multiply 4 by 2 to get an equivalent fraction, and that will give you 8. Doing the same thing, you need to multiply 6 by 3 to get 18, so you need to multiply 5 by 3 so that you get an equivalent fraction, and that will give you 15 on the top. So now we're back to the situation that we had in part A. We've got the same denominator, so we just go ahead and add the numerators. 18 will be the denominator, and on the numerator we're going to have 8 plus 15, which will be 23. We look to see whether any cancellation can be done, whether this fraction is expressed in lowest terms, and in this case we see that we can't do any cancellation. It is in lowest terms. The only other thing that you might notice here is that this fraction is top-heavy. The numerator is bigger than the denominator. There's nothing wrong with that. You can just leave your answer as a top-heavy fraction, but you might like to convert it into a mixed number so that you can get a better idea of just how big this number is. Well, to convert it into a mixed number, you need to look at how many times the denominator goes into the numerator. In this case, it goes in once, so the integer part of the mixed number will be 1. And when you divide 18 into 23, it goes once, as we said, and the remainder is 5, so the fractional part will be 5/18. The trickiest part of this example was finding the number that we wanted to be the denominator of the two fractions. We chose 18. If you're not sure what number to pick, you can always just multiply together the denominators of the two fractions. In this case, you would have multiplied 9 and 6 to get 54. The calculation would have gone through just as before, and at this stage you would have ended up with a fraction which had 54 as the denominator, and you'd have had to have cancelled it down to get 23/18. Let's now look at part C. In this part, we're asked to subtract two fractions. Subtracting fractions works in just the same way as adding them. If you've got the same denominators, then you just go ahead and subtract the numerators. If the denominators are different, then first of all you have to express each fraction as an equivalent fraction in such a way that you've got the same denominators. So let's go ahead and do this one. 6/7 minus 2/3. Well, we need a number that's a multiple of both 7 and 3. And in this case, the best number to use is just the one that you get by multiplying together the two denominators. And that's 21. So we're going to express the two fractions with denominator 21. Well, to get 21 from 7, you need to multiply by 3. So we're going to need to multiply the top by 3 as well, and that will give 18. To turn 3 into 21, you need to multiply by 7. So you've got to multiply the top by 7 as well, and that will give 14. And now we just subtract the numerators. So that will give us 4 over the denominator 21. And that's our answer. To finish off, we just make sure that our fraction is expressed in lowest terms, and in this case it is. There's no cancelling to be done. In the final example, we're asked to add two mixed numbers, 1 2/3 and 4 1/2. So 1 2/3 plus 4 1/2. Well, to add mixed numbers, you can add the integer parts and you can add the fractional parts and see what you end up with. So if we add the 1 and the 4, we get 5, and then we're going to add the 2/3 and the half using the method that we used above. Well, remembering that the fractional parts are always added onto the integer parts, we're going to put a plus here so that we don't forget that. And then we're going to have 2/3 plus a half. Okay, let's simplify that, where we're going to have the 5 still from here. And we're going to want to add these fractions. So we're going to have to express them with a common denominator. We're going to have to find a number that both 3 and 2 divide into exactly. And that number will be 6. So we're going to express both the fractions with the denominator 6. Right, well, we have to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6. So we have to multiply the numerator by 2 as well, and that will give 4. For this fraction, we have to multiply the 2 by 3 to get 6. So we have to multiply the 1 by 3 as well, giving us 3. So now we can add the fractions by just adding the numerators. So we carry forward the 5, it's still there. And the fractional part will have the denominator 6, and the numerator is 4 plus 3, which is 7. Now, we're going to have to express this as a mixed number, and this part here is a top-heavy fraction, so we're going to have to express just this part alone as a mixed number so that we can add the integer part of this top-heavy fraction onto the 5. So the next stage is to convert this top-heavy fraction into a mixed number. So again, we carry forward the 5 because it's still there, and we've got 7 over 6. Well, 6 goes into 7 one time, and it's got remainder 1, so it's 1 1/6. And now we can just add together this integer here and the integer part of this mixed number to obtain 6 1/6.